I apologize for the delay in producing this video. I was a bit distracted by my latest project, a companion website to this channel. Do check it out, www.watchtowerexamination.com. It is still under construction. There is much that will be added to the resources page. By the grace of God, I will be setting up a Facebook page and starting a discussion group within the next couple of days. We can have even more robust discussions of the issues. I also wish to say profound thanks for the many kind comments placed at the videos, for all of you who have been sharing, and for the over 400 subscribers in just over a month. I thank you very much. I am extremely passionate about this. Once again, a big thank you. In video 4, I mentioned some reasons Jehovah's Witnesses remain loyal to the Watchtower. That was not an all-encompassing list by any means. Here, we look at another reason. Jehovah's Witnesses find the organization quite impressive. Even the most ardent critic of the society cannot deny that there are aspects of the organization that is quite impressive. For one, there is no other Christian denomination that has been more effective at door-to-door witnessing. You can hardly find an adult in lots of countries who have never been visited by a Jehovah's Witness. Secondly, the average Jehovah's Witness knows more about the society's teachings than the average Christian knows about the Bible, even if former Jehovah's Witnesses know more about the society than the current members do, but that's another topic. The organization has successfully fought for various rights under the United States Constitution. Their firm stance against blood transfusions has been a factor in medical science looking at alternative means for surgery. Even if we disagree with the Watchtower on the issue of blood, and I disagree, we can still commend them insofar as that aspect goes. The Watchtower headquarters is a specimen of financial success. They boast a pretty impressive printry and an enviable record of printed literature every month. There are things that some of us may not even be very impressed about, but we have to understand that Jehovah's Witnesses are proud of these things. Let's not take that away from them. Having their own songbook with their own songs and their own Bible would be something I'd be proud of had I not known what I know now. The truth is, there is more, much more that I can talk about in terms of how impressive the organization is. Unfortunately for the Watchtower, these are things that are impressive to man, but not necessarily to God. The Watchtower is not impressed with the Catholic Church, yet Brooklyn headquarters is nothing compared to the Vatican, and the admiration of the governing body pales to nothingness in comparison to the admiration and respect the world has for the Pope. Unfortunately, being impressive is a necessary requirement of a deceiver, and there is no escaping that fact. And this is where the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society has been rather dangerous. Members are so impressed with and are so in love with the organization that they do not see the wickedness in which it is entrenched. There is no way that an ordinary-looking lady was going to bring Samson down. It had to take a very attractive Delilah. Scammers don't deceive people by unimpressive means. The Watchtower could not have deceived so many for so long had it not been so impressive. That is the main reason it has managed to be so wicked for so long. Why do I say they are wicked? Simple. Because they are, what's the word? Wicked. How do they define wickedness?
That which is very bad, morally. It often denotes that which is injurious, malevolent, or destructive in influence.
Okay, let us begin with what is very bad, morally.
Can you trust religion, regarding morals?
That is the topic of one of their articles in the July 1, 2013 Watchtower entitled, Should You Trust Religion? And here is an example of what the Watchtower constitutes as a matter of morality.
A man named Lionel states, "My workmates lie, and call in sick, when they are not really sick. Religion is something that they have, but don't use, like a piece of furniture, just for show."
That is how Jehovah's Witnesses view other Christians who lie about being sick. But they are so impressed with their organization that they have not pondered, what about a religious organization that lies about being a religious organization? For nearly 50 years, Jehovah's Witnesses in Mexico officially lied about their status of being a religious organization. It was registered as a cultural organization. By their choice, prayer and singing were not done in their meetings. By their choice, the Bible was not used in witnessing activities. They elected instead to use only Watchtower publications, which they declared as aids in their cultural activities. By their choice, they were not to be called a congregation, but a company. By their choice, baptism was not a religious rite. It was just a symbol of joining the cultural organization. Today, this organization dares to use people lying about being sick as an example of bad morality. But it gets worse. Listen to this statement in the January 1, 1919 Watchtower, speaking of Mexico.
A highlight of 1989 was a change in the status of Jehovah's Witnesses in Mexico. As a result, the Bible could be used in the house-to-house preaching work, for the first time, and meetings could be opened with prayer.
The Mexican government had no ban or prohibition against prayer or the use of the Bible. The only consequence was that religious organizations could not own property. Other Christian congregations cooperated with the Mexican government. They would rather let the government own their buildings than forfeit the use of the Bible, prayer, and songs in their worship and witnessing activities. The Watchtower, on the other hand, chose to sacrifice those things on the altar of real estate ownership, and then dares to print that shameless lie. There is another shameful act of low morality with regards to Mexico. This same organization that dares to criticize other Christians for bad morality, for lying about being sick, allowed their members to bribe officials in Mexico for an illegal certificate. A quick background to that one. Jehovah's Witnesses forbid members to join the military or the army. The Mexican government required that young men of drafting age complete 1 year of military training, after which a certificate would be issued. It was illegal for officials to grant the certificate to men who did not complete the training, but it was a common practice for officials to be bribed for issuing such certificates. Jehovah's Witness young men did this, with the okay of the governing body, who declared it as a matter of conscience. To begin with, is it biblical that Christians should not serve their country in the armed forces? This brings me to another aspect of the Watchtower's definition of wickedness, that part about being destructive in influence. While the Watchtower organization permitted men in Mexico to bribe officials for a fraudulent certificate, men and women in Malawi, Africa, during the same time were being, well, imagine that I was speaking with a BBC correspondent.
Confirmed reports by thousands of eyewitnesses gave a horrifying account of brutal persecution in that land, one seldom equaled in modern history. Among the thousands now living in the hastily constructed refugee camps, many showed the effects of vicious beatings and torture.
That is horrible. How many thousands of persons are we talking about?
Nearly 11,600 flooded into neighboring Mozambique. A dispatch from Zambia, to the London Daily Telegraph, reported 8,925 had sought refuge in Zambia by the middle of October, with more continuing to arrive daily.
That is significant. What was the extent of the atrocities?
Thousands of their homes, stores, and places of worship were destroyed and looted. A number of the witnesses were murdered, hundreds of their women were raped, some repeatedly.
Atrocious. You said they were Christians. How many different Christian denominations were affected?
All these refugees were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Wow. Only Jehovah's Witnesses? Why?
Because of their refusal to buy party cards.
No, how about that? We have these Christians who are facing severe inhumanity, not because they are refusing to deny the name of Christ, not because they are refusing to worship some other god, not because they are insisting on obeying an explicit or clear command from God, but because they have been influenced by the Watchtower that something that is no sin is in fact a sin. To begin with, this party card was for the Malawi Congress Party, which was the only political party in the country, which in effect made them the government. Where in the Bible does God forbid his people to have a government card? This is how strong, how evil the influence is that the Watchtower has over people. For those Jehovah's Witnesses who will try to argue that it is a sin to have a party card and to be in the military, how can you explain the organization then allowing men to bribe officials to illegally grant them a certificate that officially placed them in the first reserve, while not allowing members in Malawi to purchase a government card that would save their lives? It is one thing to be wicked, but it is another thing to delight in wickedness. While women were repeatedly raped and others murdered, while Jehovah's Witnesses suffered severe atrocities in Africa, the Watchtower was proud to present them as trophies to the dedication to their man-made doctrines.
As columnist, Guy Wright, of the San Francisco Examiner, October 17, 1972, observed, It was a very one-sided war, pitting force against faith. Yet faith actually proved the stronger, as witness after witness demonstrated that his or her faith could not be broken by brutality.
What makes this even more painful for me is that a two-thirds vote by the governing body could have prevented these atrocities. Even without that two-thirds majority, they were not all united on this matter, according to Raymond Franz. Yet, if one Jehovah's Witness from Malawi should go against this rule, he or she would face being disfellowshipped. Have the few members of the governing body who disagreed with the position been disfellowshipped? Why is it that the members of the governing body are allowed to disagree with the position of the organization, but the members are not allowed so to do? Is there a count of the number of Jehovah's Witnesses who died refusing vaccines when the organization prohibited it? Has the organization issued an apology to the members whose relatives might have died refusing vaccines? Would it be the moral thing to do to apologize to the members who put off marriage, children, education, sold their homes and properties because of the influence that the organization had on their lives? Is there an apology on record? They are on record, however, boasting of their brothers selling their homes and property because of the society's deception.
Reports are heard of brothers selling their homes and property, and planning to finish out the rest of their days in this old system, in the pioneer service. Certainly, this is a fine way to spend the short time remaining before the wicked world's end.
I wish that that was the worst that I could say about this organization delighting in wickedness. In preparing my notes for this video, I happened to have stumbled onto a video where the author made the very same points that I planned to make in this video on a certain subject. He has so said everything I planned to say in this video that I wondered if I should really say it or just ask you all to visit his channel and watch his video. But I'm still going to summarize what I planned to say and invite you to watch his video for a bit more details. There's a link to his video in the description below. Check it out. I will not relate to you the individual stories of some children mentioned in the May 22, 1994 Awake. I read the articles and I was heartbroken. I admired the children who showed so much courage that they died standing up for what they believe in. But how sad that they and their parents believed a lie. I will not get much into that debate about whether it is wrong to take blood transfusions. Let us for argument's sake say that God was including blood transfusions when he gave the command. If the Watchtower knew God, which will be discussed in the next video, they would know that God is in support of exceptions to his law when it comes to matters of life. He gave the strict and explicit command not to work on Sabbath, yet he allowed Jews to save the lives of their cattle if it was necessary on Sabbath. Jesus, who was a Jew, rubbished the criticism of his critiques and healed people on the Sabbath, explaining that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath, meaning that man's welfare is more important to him than legalism. If the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society knew God, they would know that the lives of these children are more important to God than some law about not eating blood. And if I ever had any doubt that the Watchtower is wicked, they removed all that doubt with this statement.
Someone may argue with you that the scriptures are referring to the eating of blood, but that blood is not taken into the digestive system during a transfusion. True, but the fact is that by a direct route the blood serves the same purpose as food when taken into the stomach, namely, strengthening the body, or sustaining life. It is not the same as a vaccine given to a healthy person to ward off a disease. Blood is given to a weak or sick person to build him up, just as food is given to nourish him.
There is no need to argue with the Watchtower that the law is about eating blood. They know it. But yet, they prohibit the building up of their weak and sick members, their own members. And it matters not to this wicked organization if the victim is a child.
And the doctor looked me straight in the eye and said, Mr. and Mrs. Blizzard, you have to make a decision, yes or no, whether your child lives or dies.
We just had a real distinct impression that we were supposed to obey God's law and go by what we had always been taught, and that we were to let our daughter die.
The witnesses, there was multitudes of them that came up to the room, just swarmed the room, tried to giving us Watchtower articles about artificial blood, and you just can't let your child take that blood, and just putting this heavy guilt trip on us. I just told them, look, I just can't let my child die in that way. And the elders were just so upset. They left, in a huff. They were mad. And one of the elders said on the way out, he looked me in the eye and said, "You know what? I hope your daughter gets hepatitis from that blood." And that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. I was just broken here. My own people, God's organization, turning against me, cursing me, because I just wanted to see my child live. And so they left. And we were all alone. Even my own parents didn't come see us.
Jehovah's Witnesses are so impressed and are so in love with the Watchtower that they cannot see the wickedness of this organization, the families that have been torn apart by their shunning doctrine, the many Jehovah's Witnesses who have died because of their man-made doctrines and legalism. Jehovah's Witnesses, these are not my words.
These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules. You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions. And he continued, you have a fine way of setting aside the commands of God in order to observe your own traditions.
Do you know who spoke those words?
Jesus fearlessly exposed the unloving false teachers of his day and their wrong teachings.
They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders. But they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win a single convert. And when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness.
This was a painful video for me to make. The problems mentioned here are but symptoms of a larger problem, a problem that will be discussed in the next video. The Watchtower does not know God. Sadly, by extension, Jehovah's Witnesses are not being made to know God.